There are a lot of potential criticisms that can be levied against Factorio, but one that I've never heard someone say is that it's too short. I think that it's too short. What if we were to say, make it 100 times longer? My settings for this run are simple. We start with the Railworld preset, we then increase technology multiplier to 100. I divided all byte of evolution factors by 100 and increased the starting area size to 300%, which, trust me when I say, just about makes us equally powered with them. Immediately, this doesn't look much different from a normal run. We begin as always, building our burner mining setup to get a baseline resource income. Now it's time to address the elephant in the room. You've read the title and our thumbnail, so you know what's coming here. Every single technology requires 100 times more science packs than usual. So a technology that usually needs 10 red science packs now requires 1,000. And the rocket technology itself requires more science packs than it takes to unlock the entire tech tree in a normal game. This is not all strictly true, however. Due to the Factorio devs having some mercy, and the frank ridiculousness of having to spend 92 minutes handcrafting red science packs to unlock automation, the automation tech is immune to the multiplier, so we only need 10 red science packs to get assembly machines. No other technology in the game gets this concession. So, obviously it isn't sustainable to be handcrafting red science at any point from now on, so we go straight into some industrial scale hand feeding. One gear assembler will be enough to feed these 10 red science assemblers, and we have them all set up nicely in a row to make it as brain dead as possible to hand feed. In a normal run, this kind of level of production would carry me through to a rocket launch, but in this run, it's hardly enough to get logistics researched in a lifetime, which means I'll have to build another one right next to it. In retrospect, I could have automated delivery of the gears, but then where would I fit the suffering which seems mandatory with every Factorio challenge? So anyway, we have a lot of science now, and one lab will not be enough. We need a lot of them. With no beacons, modules, or research speed upgrades, you will see that the number of labs required to consume all of the science we will produce gets ridiculous quickly. Still researching logistics, we have 20 labs going, and I'm not actually convinced it's consuming all of the science I'm producing, though I never actually checked. I also begin running the numbers for how many materials I need for 1200 red science per minute, which I thought was a good amount, and I think it's feasible for me to just build outright as soon as logistics is researched. I begin setting up the smelting stacks. I'm going to need a little under 3 lanes of iron and a little over 1 lane of copper, so I settle with 4 of iron and 2 of copper to save some extra for a small mall. It's around this point I realised the degree of carpal tunnel compression I was going to experience if I hand placed everything from now until bots, which will be a long time, so I downloaded GhostPlacerExpress, which I think is the least cheaty of the early game blueprint placing mods. For anyone who hasn't used or heard of it, when it's turned on, any ghost I have my cursor over will be automatically placed if I'm within arm's reach and I have the item in my inventory. Soon, the logistics tech finishes, so I can finish building these furnace stacks. It's a design as old as time, so I won't show you the process, but here's the finished result. You can also see the ghost placer in action here. The first thing I do is set up some automated gears and belts, which will be useful because we're going to need a massive amount of them. I then set up circuits. I don't need them for red science, but I'll want some for the little mall I'm going to build. To begin with, I just build yellow and red inserters in the mall, but I'll expand it as I see fit. Then, we have the most important bit, the red science itself. I build this little module, which on its own can produce 120 red science per minute, so to reach our target, we're going to need 10 of these. After that, we have the labs. It is going to be a constant battle throughout this playthrough to have enough of these to keep up with production, since the game simply wasn't built around having this much science production this early on. We instantly get back to building more red science setups, as the faster we get this up and running, the faster we can get through the early sciences. User Alp on my Discord correctly guessed the challenge for this run from the photo of this setup alone, so shout out to them for that. If you aren't in my Discord, you totally should be. It's where I post all of my updates about videos, as well as just hanging out sometimes. Around this point, I realise I'm going to have to go on the offensive, or defensive, at some point, as the biters will not ignore me for much longer, so I get rifle magazines automated. At my tech level, I have very little options for attacking bases, so unfortunately, I must submit to the cheesiest of cheese, the turret creep. Here's what that looks like. I'm sure there are many colours of paint you'd rather watch dry than seeing me turret creep the poor natives 1,000 times, so I'll skip over most of it, but rest assured, this is a constant issue I face, because unless I want to build defences, I will need to be going out and clearing fighters constantly to stop my pollution cloud covering them. Thanks to the railroad preset, the nests will not expand, so every nest destroyed is a permanent upgrade to my available land. I'll give you all of the deets now, so that I don't have to rehash this later. Yes, I am using the expansion indicator to find nests. Yes, it is cheating. No, I don't care. This run is already going to take a hell of a long time. I don't need it taking any longer than it needs to. As far as I'm concerned, the real challenge for this run is the scale, so I want to spend as little time bogged down in the minutiae as possible. After a lot of going out and clearing nearby nests, it's time to get back to the task at hand. We return home and build more red science setups, making that 4 and getting us to 480 science per minute. However, as you can see here, we are very backed up on red science, meaning we need way more labs to actually make use of the production we have here. I finish off the 5th red science setup, so we're halfway to the goal I set of 600 science per minute. I realise that this lab design isn't going to work as soon as I want to add another science pack, so I have to pick up all of this bottom part and move it further along. The array is so large now, I can't fit it all on one screen, so enjoy seeing most of it in action. According to the Factorio cheat sheet, we need 1200 labs to consume 1200 science per minute if the research time for the technology is 60 seconds, which is obviously infeasible, so we aim for 300 for now, which will fully consume our current 600 science per minute if the research time is 30 seconds. To this end, I automate labs. Yep, that's right, all of those labs were handcrafted. No, I will never recover. This is our base as it stands currently. As you can see, we have plenty of leeway when it comes to pollution, as the cloud is nowhere near even the possible expansion chunks, never mind the nests themselves. It's a good job too, because we aren't doing nearly enough mining to satiate a 1200 science per minute base, so we will need to expand to this iron and this coal. At some point, I realised that to play through this entire game at normal speed could take a very long time, so I decided that the only answer was to bend time to my will and maybe save a few dozen hours off my life. To this end, I installed TimeButtons to allow me to speed up time at the click of a button, especially useful for the increasingly long walks between exterminating nests, and as a nice bonus, effectively pentupling my science per minute in that time. Just look at that research bar. It almost felt like a normal game for a moment there. A quick reminder of the absolute dirt I get up to when the camera's not rolling. Something I hadn't shown up to this point was the absolutely insane amount of steam engines required to power this base, which, might I remind you, has never even felt the touch of a green science pack. And it's around here that I changed tune and decided to fix that. Up until now, I intended to make 1200 science per minute of each science, but spoilers, this is all getting torn down once I've unlocked trains and the cybersyn technology, so I thought screw it and pivoted. We could use our infrastructure for 1200 science per minute of red science, but we could also use it for just barely 480 science per minute of red and green science, so I decided to do that instead. This will take the form of two 240 science per minute green science modules, the first of which I'm building now. If you can see what I've done wrong here, you're a lot smarter than I am. Whilst the research finishes for green science, I engage in more skirmishes against the locals. I'll give you one last chance to see it. Yep, every single inserter is the wrong way around. I make the decision here to buffer green science, because I still have some red sciences left to do, and technically, my red science production is 600 science per minute, so the extra green will get used. I can now introduce this green science into my lab build. The problem I'm facing now is that I need more resources to actually feed this factory, but I need more power to feed the miners, but my coal patch's entire production is almost being used. The first thing I do is expand my power plant to have a second row of boilers and steam engines. Mining this coal patch is next up on the agenda. It's going to be a while before we can research any other power sources, so I suspect we're going to melt through quite a few coal patches before this run is over and done with. I connect it to my original coal patch with priority splitters set up, so it prefers to draw coal from the starter patch before this new one. With some of the spare coal kicking around, I automate grenades to help clear nests and forests. Our poor starter iron patch can't possibly produce enough resources to feed the base, so we set up a mining outpost on this massive iron patch to the southwest. For some reason, despite me having just automated grenades, I insist on ripping through this forest manually. With that connected up, our base can theoretically support 480 science per minute of red and green. All that's left to do is build the other green science module. After waging war across the southern part of the known world, I returned to clear out space for the second green science module. With it built and connected up, our base is now producing science at 480 per minute, so I think it's about time we bring this episode to a close. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.